The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 724. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have an amazing lady on the show today. She's a registered nurse, a lifestyle medicine advocate, and the host of the Grace and Gratitude podcast. And I'm really excited to have her on and share her story with us today on self-confidence. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Vebs Dichoso Dominguez. Vebs, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the listeners.
Well, sure. First, thanks, Sheena, for having me on. It's really a grace to be here. And aloha and mabuhay to all the listeners of the Tao of Self-Confidence. My name is Vebs, and I am the host of the Grace and Gratitude podcast. And I'm happily married to my husband, and I just recently moved here in Oahu, Hawaii. But 3 years ago, I was juggling 3 jobs all at once. I used to work as a healthcare professional, a marketing director in a financial industry, and as a virtual professional as well. I literally burned myself out. I lacked sleep and I was eating unhealthy foods and I was not really taking good care of my body and loving myself enough. And in 2016, I knew something had to change. So I took a leap of faith. I've decided to quit my jobs. I was living my dream, traveling to places, and was on a journey to finding myself. My life was really great and there was nothing to complain about, but deep inside, I just felt hollow and empty. And I would describe that state as emotionally numb, where I don't feel anything and I find my life meaningless. And that for me is one of the dark moments of my life. So I went again on a journey not to find myself anymore, but to rediscover myself and my purpose. And it gave birth to the podcast, Grace and Gratitude podcast, which has now been downloaded in more than 66 countries. And this is not to brag, but to inspire others that it's okay to step up and do things, even if you are afraid or even if you are not really sure what you are doing, because you'll never know how many lives you're going to touch. And I'm also a firm believer in the beauty and power of sharing our stories. That is also the reason why I love your show, Sheena.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you're here too, sharing your story today, especially what you've been through. Working 3 jobs, it's crazy. Most people, it's not normal. I know there are people who do that, but they don't realize that it really does take a toll on your health. You hear stories how people have died because of the stress of being overworked, having 3, 4, 5 jobs, not realizing that really can kill them. So it's really important. I know sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but health is important and you have to work on you and yourself and your health in the process. So I'm glad you were able to do that. And Vebs, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
My favorite, there are so many self-confidence quotes that I really love, but one of my favorites is from Melody Beattie, and I'll just put it out here. She said, "Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos to order, confusion to clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, and a stranger into a friend." It does not really sound like a self-confidence quote, but this one really resonated with me because I came to a point in my life when I consider myself as a total stranger. I forgot who I am. I don't know what my purpose is and what the meaning of life is, and I don't know why I am here. And gratitude led me to a journey to befriend myself, love myself, and that I am enough and I am worthy no matter what the circumstances. And there is no need to look for love outside ourselves because we are already loved.
Thanks for sharing that great quote. And I truly believe having the attitude of gratitude does help with confidence a lot. When you can see things in a different perspective, especially with how much we're so blessed, compared to others, it really does make us feel a lot better and just, go out there and do more. So thanks for sharing that quote. And in your own words, how do you define self-confidence?
Self-confidence for me is about knowing our self-worth and embracing ourselves wholeheartedly, flaws and all. It is also remembering our true identity. And just like in the movie Lion King, Mufasa told Simba, remember who you are. Our self-worth is not based on external factors. It is not based on our achievements, titles, or success. It is not based on what others tell us or how other people define us. When we remove all these labels that we attach to ourselves, what's left? Who are we deep down in our core? And for me, I believe each one of us is a divine expression of God's love, and our sole purpose in life is to simply manifest and radiate the love of God inside us through our own unique individual gifts in whatever we do, big or small. Doing things out of love is all that matters.
Thanks for sharing that great definition. And Vebs, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
This is a very good question, Sheena. So most of the time, our self-doubt or limiting beliefs stem from our past. It could be the way our parents treated us or how someone made us feel that we are inadequate or not good enough as a child growing up. And there were many occasions I doubted myself, and I still do sometimes. Growing up, I was always compared to the high achievers of the family who were scholastics and valedictorians, and I used to define my self-worth based on the external factors like, getting good grades, a good career, achievements, and success in a worldly sense. But as time went on, I realized that our worst critic is not our friend, family, trolls, or haters. The worst critic you will ever encounter is the one inside your head. So we have to tame it. We have to learn how to silence it and befriend it.
Thanks for sharing that. And I know a lot of us go through that. We become our own worst enemy, our own worst critic. You know, we're so mean to ourselves sometimes. Like, we would not treat our own best friend like that. So it's like you have to treat yourself like you are your own best friend. And what was that point in your life when you realized you were more than enough to go out there and be who you are today, build that confidence? What was that aha moment?
I had so many turning points in my life and aha moments. It's not a one-time moment, but a series of events in my life. I started reading books, I attended seminars and a soul spa, and gradually I learned to befriend myself and silence the voice and inner critic inside my head. But there's also one very significant event in my life that really led me to gratitude, self-confidence, and show up more fully in this world. In 2017, I was really down and I don't know the reason why, and I am not able to feel anymore. I felt I was a zombie and I just want myself to be drowned in my own thoughts. I don't want to go out there and mingle with other people or my friends, and I'm not really able to feel. And in clinical terms, they call it anhedonia, which is the inability to experience pleasure from activities you usually found enjoyable. And this is a common symptom of depression as well as other mental health disorders. And I really thank God for Melody Beatty because that quote that I mentioned earlier saved my life. When I saw that quote, gratitude turns what we have into enough, it was like a light bulb moment for me. I saw myself crying, and that is a good sign. And I was crying because I realized how blessed I was and how I was so preoccupied to look for things outside me just to satisfy me. And so I turned inward and realized so many great things in life that I really should be grateful for. And I saw my life flash before me and how great my life has been. And I just felt love and security. And so I started the Gratitude Project, which is the Gracing Gratitude podcast. And it made me remember my true identity and that we are an individual expression of God's love and we are love. And since this is a podcast about women, inspiring women, I'd also like to honor the important women who made a difference in my life. My good friend Maggie, she's one of my mentors. If Mitch Albom had Maury in his life, I have Maggie. She's the one who taught me how to be brave, how to break out of my shell, and to simply move out of my comfort zone. And of course, my mom and sister Jessica, they're the people who never fail to give me a boost of self-confidence when I needed it. And I know that we can be our own best friend and our own cheerleader. It's just really good to surround ourselves with the people who support us, lift us up, and inspire us to grow.
Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad you were able to create a gratitude project, right? Sometimes, we start things and we don't really know where it's going to go, but it just like feels right. It doesn't have to make sense in the beginning, but deep inside, it just needs to be done. And like with you just decided to do a gratitude project, you created your podcast, and you never know where it was going to lead you, but it really helped you. It saved you. It healed you as a person. And, because of that, what's your life been like now?
I feel that I am enough and I have more gratitude in my life, and I am now more mindful not to compare myself and my journey to others. As John Lee Dumas said, compare and despair. All of us, we have our own journey, and what we see on the outside, especially on social media, is just a speck of what's really going on inside us. So we really have to be compassionate and kinder to one another. And now I'm on a mission to help people find their way back to joy and rediscover a meaningful, soulful, and fulfilling lives through the practice of self-care, self-compassion, gratitude, and a life balance system.
Thanks for sharing that. And if our listeners were tuning into your episode and they're in a similar journey to self-confidence, what would be that one tip you would give to them?
To the listeners who's going through their own journey to self-confidence, never ever doubt your worth. Be patient with yourself and always remember that life does not happen to us. Life happens for us, and you do not have to be okay all the time, and you do not have to figure out everything all at once. It is just a journey, and sometimes it is okay not to be okay and to be vulnerable and to ask for help. At some point, we can roll up our sleeves again and turn our weakness moments to our glorious moments. And as a Persian poet said, Rumi, the wind is the place where the light enters you. So allow yourself to feel and heal, because we can only heal what we can feel. One day, once the pieces of all our puzzles are all together, everything will make sense. But for now, just remember who you truly are. Who are you? You are light, you are love, and you are an individual expression of God. When you're ready to go out there and be who you truly are, go out there. No filters, no excuses, no mask, and be grateful. Start a gratitude journal or a gratitude project. Be happy, be you.
Thanks for sharing those great tips. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, or check out some of your work, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yes, absolutely. So we're launching a website. It's www.vebsdominguez.com. I'm on Instagram, Vebs Dominguez, and on Facebook as well.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Vebs, you can also head on over to the taoofselfconfidence.com and search for Vebs' name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else that we talked about. And I really just want to thank Vebs today for taking the time to share her story and tips with us on self-confidence. So thank you so much, Vebs.
Thank you, Sheena. It's a great to be here.
Not a problem. It was really great having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to get your daily boost of confidence.